What follows requires careful consideration. This content is for educational and informational purposes only. It's based on alleged federal courtroom testimony from the Sean Diddy Combs legal proceedings, as reported by Inner City Press. No cameras captured the events, no live streams, no photographs, just sketches, transcripts, and eyewitness accounts. Still, the details that emerged from inside that tightly controlled courtroom have reportedly shaken the foundations of Hollywood. Behind those closed doors, what was once whispered in private now threatens to rewrite public perception of power, fame, and the price of silence. Inside the federal courthouse, security was airtight, doors guarded, devices banned, silence enforced. Journalists sat with notepads, scribbling every word, every pause, every shift in tone. No recordings, no cameras, just raw human observation. Courtroom artists captured the tension in charcoal and ink, faces rigid with disbelief, eyes wide with unspoken questions. The air was thick, not just with legal gravity, but with something deeper, dread. What emerged from those sterile walls wasn't just a high-profile celebrity case. It was a narrative, if true, that paints a chilling portrait of influence exploited, of power wielded in the shadows, and of a culture that rewards silence over truth. Behind the public image of fame and luxury, the alleged testimony suggested an intricate web of manipulation, systemic, long-running, and protected. And at the center of one of its most devastating revelations stood Jamie Foxx, not as a performer, not as a household name, but as a man visibly unraveling under the weight of memory. Shaking, emotional, and stripped of his usual composure, he reportedly told a story that stunned even the most seasoned courtroom observers. It wasn't just what he said, but how deeply it seemed to haunt him, that turned the room to stone. This was no act. This was the breaking of silence. Known for his charisma, versatility, and commanding presence, Jamie Foxx has long stood as one of entertainment's most composed and confident figures. An Oscar winner, a chart-topping musician, a master of impersonation and humor, he's the kind of performer who rarely falters under pressure. But in that courtroom, on that day, the man who took the witness stand was someone entirely different. According to multiple accounts, Foxx appeared visibly shaken. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. And as he began to describe what he allegedly witnessed on a night at Sean Diddy Combs' residence, the room fell silent. It wasn't the content alone that gripped the courtroom, it was his collapse under the weight of it. He reportedly broke down in tears, struggling to continue, as jurors looked on in stunned disbelief. This wasn't the confident Jamie the world had come to know. This wasn't a performance. This was a man confronting something so disturbing, so deeply buried, that even his remarkable ability to hold it together failed him. What he described wasn't just a night gone wrong, it was, by his account, the moment everything changed. What began as a night of celebration turned into a haunting memory, one that he said had followed him for years. According to Jamie Foxx's alleged testimony, it all began with what seemed like a typical invitation, one of many he'd received over the years. Diddy's estate wasn't just a mansion, it was a symbol. A fortress of influence where careers were born, partnerships were sealed, and power pulsed through every room. Foxx called it a palace of power, a place where being invited meant you were in part of the inner circle, part of the industry's elite. That evening started like countless others, flowing drinks, laughter echoing across marble floors, and rooms filled with familiar faces, actors, producers, musicians, influencers. Conversations buzzed with opportunity, camera flashes captured moments of luxury and camaraderie, and the atmosphere pulsed with high-stakes glamour. But as the night progressed, Foxx said, something changed. The energy shifted. The laughter dimmed. People began disappearing into private rooms. Conversations quieted. Jamie recalled a subtle but unmistakable change in tone, something unspoken hanging in the air. What had felt like a celebration slowly turned cold, calculated, secretive. He said he began to notice unfamiliar faces, people who didn't fit the usual Hollywood mold, who looked uncomfortable, out of place. It was then, he claimed, that he was told to stay. To relax. That a surprise had been prepared just for him. And with that, he was led deeper into the mansion, unaware that what awaited him would leave a mark he said no amount of time or fame could erase. Jamie Foxx claimed that as the night grew stranger, he was led away from the crowd and into a secluded part of the mansion, a place few ever saw. It was a private theater room, he said. Soundproofed. Dimly lit. The kind of room built for exclusivity, for secrecy. A screen was already glowing in the darkness, video content cued. He was told to sit, to relax. Someone allegedly whispered to him, "This is where bonding happens." But what followed, according to Jamie, was anything but bonding. He described feeling disoriented, unsure of what he was about to witness. The screen flickered to life, and within moments, confusion gave way to dread. He said he couldn't tell if what he was watching was staged or real, but it didn't matter. The emotional response was immediate and visceral. His stomach dropped. His heart raced. He felt revulsion, panic, and a desperate need to leave. He stood up, trying to exit, but the doors were reportedly locked. There was no explanation. No context. Just an unspoken expectation that he would sit and watch. That this was part of the experience. A ritual masked as entertainment. "I never asked to witness that content," Jamie reportedly said, his voice cracking under the weight of memory. "I've spent every subsequent day trying to forget it." And in that courtroom, recounting the event years later, he was still trying. The courtroom held its breath. Jamie Foxx paused, visibly shaken, his breathing heavy and uneven. The weight of his words lingered in the air like smoke. Then, quietly but firmly, the judge called for a recess to give him space, to let the room reset. For 5 long minutes, no one moved. No whispers. No scribbling pens. Just silence. It wasn't the content of his testimony alone that stunned the room, it was the way it broke him. The emotion wasn't performative. It felt raw, lived in, and painfully real. And in that moment, it became clear, whatever Jamie had witnessed, it hadn't let him go. According to Jamie Foxx, the night at the mansion was only the beginning. The days that followed, he said, were even more unsettling. It started with calls, calm in tone, but chilling in intent. There were no outright threats, no explicit warnings. Instead, there were reminders. Carefully worded check-ins. Friendly voices that hinted, subtly but unmistakably, that what he had seen was best left unspoken. Then came the offer, a non-disclosure agreement paired with a 7-figure check. A single signature in exchange for silence. Jamie said he refused. He couldn't bring himself to agree, no matter how tempting the payout. That's when everything began to shift. Meetings were cancelled. Projects he had been developing for months suddenly fell apart. Long-time collaborators grew distant. Invitations to major events stopped coming. Where once doors had opened easily, now they remained firmly shut. It was a freeze-out, quiet but real, he testified. And I understood why. No one told him directly. They didn't have to. The message was loud in its silence: speak out, and you disappear. Jamie described it as a slow erasure not from public memory, but from the inner machinery of the industry. And in that courtroom, he made it clear this wasn't paranoia. This was the price of knowing too much. What Jamie Foxx claimed he uncovered after that night was even more disturbing than what he had witnessed in the theater room. In his testimony, he described learning about a hidden archive, an alleged vault of digital files stored on encrypted private servers deep inside Diddy's estate. But this wasn't a collection of party highlights or behind-the-scenes music footage. According to Jamie, it was something far more sinister. This was surveillance, intentional, covert, and deeply invasive. Jamie alleged that hidden cameras had been placed throughout the property, in hallways, private rooms, even bathrooms. And these cameras weren't there for security. They were capturing moments that guests never consented to, moments that could destroy careers, reputations, even lives. Celebrities. Executives. Politicians. Many of them, Jamie claimed, had no idea they were ever being filmed. They didn't record for fun, Jamie reportedly told the court. They recorded for leverage. Insurance. Control. This alleged archive, he said, wasn't just a collection, it was currency. A tool used to manipulate, silence, and bind people into complicity. It was, according to his testimony, How power was maintained not through influence or respect, but through fear. Through ownership of secrets too dangerous to reveal. And for Jamie, discovering this wasn't just shocking. It redefined everything he thought he knew about the world he'd worked so hard to succeed in. Months after that fateful night at the mansion, Jamie Foxx received something chilling: an anonymous package delivered to his production office. There was no return address, no letter, no explanation. Inside was a simple flash drive. But what was stored on it was anything but simple. When Jamie viewed the footage, he saw himself, grainy, shadowed, vulnerable, captured on camera inside that very theater room. His face, his every reaction, his discomfort laid bare in low-resolution detail. The recording showed him exactly as he had been: confused, unsettled, desperate to leave. Then, after the footage ended, the screen faded to black. Slowly, stark white text appeared: "Just remember." It wasn't an outright threat. No demands. No explicit warnings. But it was a reminder, a cold, calculated message that someone had been watching all along. That he was never alone. That what he'd witnessed, what he'd experienced, had been monitored and documented. And most chilling of all, it was a signal of who held the power. Who was truly in control. In that moment, Jamie reportedly realized the full extent of the surveillance and manipulation at play. It was a message not just to him, but to anyone who might dare speak out: your every move can be tracked, your every reaction recorded, and silence isn't just expected, it's enforced. This anonymous package wasn't just a piece of evidence. It was a reminder of the invisible chains that bound him and countless others in a web of fear and control. Jamie Foxx described something far larger than just one night or one incident. According to his testimony, what he had uncovered was not isolated abuse, it was a system. A deeply entrenched, institutionalized web of blackmail and control that stretched across Hollywood's most powerful circles. He explained that many people he trusted had privately confided similar stories, experiences of fear, manipulation, and silence. Yet, these individuals remained too frightened to speak out publicly. The stakes were too high. Careers, reputations, and even personal safety were on the line. Jamie went further, alleging that even lawsuits brought against the estate or its affiliates were systematically neutralized. This hidden empire of surveillance wasn't just collecting footage for leverage, it was actively used to shut down legal challenges before they could gain traction. Endorsements and public support from celebrities weren't won by respect or admiration, they were secured through coercion. Deals were made in shadows, with cameras rolling unseen, capturing moments that could be weaponized if anyone dared cross the line. "Do you think I'm the only one?" Jamie asked the courtroom, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Do you think I'm brave? I'm not. I'm just exhausted." His words hung in the air, a plea and a warning. This wasn't just his burden to bear. It was a glimpse into a culture of silence, fear, and control that demanded attention. And in that courtroom, his testimony cracked open the door on a world many had only whispered about. In closing, Jamie Foxx reportedly named 3 other celebrities, names carefully redacted from the official court transcripts, who were said to have attended similar secret gatherings at Diddy's estate. Among them, according to multiple reports, was a Grammy-winning rapper, a beloved late-night host, and a socially conscious actress known for her activism. None of these individuals have publicly addressed the allegations. This testimony wasn't about a party gone wrong or isolated incidents. If Jamie's words hold true, they reveal something far more sinister: an empire built on silence, maintained through secrets, and sustained by fear. A world behind the glitz and glamour, where power operates in shadows, and reputations are controlled by leverage and coercion rather than merit. As the courtroom adjourned for the day, the weight of what had been revealed hung heavy in the air. The audience, the legal teams, and those following the case outside the courthouse all understood one thing. Beneath the dazzling surface of fame and fortune, there may exist a very different Hollywood. A Hollywood that doesn't seek applause, awards, or red carpets, but accountability. A Hollywood where silence isn't golden, it's dangerous. And where the truth, once hidden behind closed doors, is finally being forced into the light.